Welcome on in, guys. It's Natasha Varela, the Moneyista, yours truly, tax strategist, business owner, and I'm the owner of the Tax Strategies Mastermind, the founder, where I teach how to reduce and or eliminate your tax liability through legal tax avoidance strategies. 13 years in the large business and international division of the Internal Revenue Service, and 20 years total in audit, accounting, and tax. So let's talk investment strategy. And I always like to inject my story because my story is not an anomaly. It applies to a lot of people. So my first purchase was a primary residence, and it was a condo. If you've been following me, you know how I feel about condos. Okay, condos are very high risk for investment strategies, but those of you who have condos and it has worked great for the most part, it's very, very risky. The first is HOA fees that do nothing but keep climbing. They never go down. They're out of your control. The second is assessments. Assessments are one-time occurrences, usually like you need to replace your roof, a hot water heater, or some major part of the building or complex or community that needs attention that is out of the norm, and it must come from the owners, right? And those are things that you can't control, and a lot of times they're huge to where these assessments can span years, right? Which means your HOA fees, your monthly HOA fees, your common charges, if you want to call them that, on top of an assessment that could last years, right? So I purchased the property. It was new construction. The sponsor was a developer and sponsor interchangeable, and built the building, took out a construction loan, and was artificially keeping common charges low to make the unit seem appealing. He was funding the operations with loan money, his money. And people were purchasing thinking, oh, this is great. Common charges are not that high. Well, every condo building, right? Every sponsor has to hand over the HOA to a condo board, right? He or she must form the condo board. The condo board now takes over the finances, and we see, right? I was part of the condo board, what the actual operations were, okay? And that we didn't take in enough money in common charges to pay for operations, which is your elevator maintenance in my case, your 24-hour doorman, cleaning, gym, maintenance, things of that nature, sewage, the air, right, for the lobby, the heating, things of that nature, cleaning. And so we had to take away a lot of amenities. Like we had a shuttle that took us to the train station, shout out to downtown Brooklyn, and back. And that was cut out. So you had to walk from the train station, which was not a bad walk, but it was an uncomfortable walk, particularly in the evening. Okay. It wasn't a very smooth walk. And that was the reason why a lot of people purchased in that unit, in that building, because they said, okay, it's kind of out of the way, but you've provided a shuttle. So now you take it away from them, and you take away the very reason that people consider that unit, right? Again, this is just my example. So what ended up happening over the series of the next few years is the HOA kept going up because things kept going awry, right? A lot of times people go cheap, developers, they try to fit a square peg into a round hole. We needed an architecture to go through, the heating system, the hot water system, and correct it. The roof needed to be replaced. We had things like local law 11, which is like a set of rules and guidelines where you have to have your building up to code, otherwise face a fine, right? And these are things that you can't control. So now what happens is it becomes very difficult to unload that condo, right, to sell, because the finances are in disarray, and nobody wants a condo with common charges that high, right, very high. Not only that, you start to have a lot of people, and this is with any condo, new development or not, people, instead of unloading their condo when they move on to a single family home or whatever have you, they keep it and they rent it out as an investment property. If you have enough of these people in the community doing that, the condo becomes what you call unwarrantable. Unwarrantable means it doesn't meet the guidelines of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You have to find a special lender for your potential buyer that will give funding for a property where these guidelines aren't met. What are these guidelines? There are more renters than owners in the community living. Okay. One person or entity owns more than 10% of the units, in which in my case there was. So there was really no way out. I sold my condo, but I had to sell it all cash. And we know what happens with all cash offers. You have to take significant hit to unload. And coupled with high common charges, that's just what it is, right? You have to take a loss. So I made it work because I had no choice until I could unload. Okay. So that's why I kind of tell people, be careful of condos. It may seem like the easy route because, I don't have to maintain property, or I don't. Yeah, but it's also very difficult to sell because a lot of things are predicated upon other people, right? You can't get rid of certain things that other people do. You can't force people to sell their investment property or move back in so that they can meet guidelines, right? For you to be able to sell, for your buyer to be able to get a mortgage, a traditional mortgage. It's very, very difficult. So I always caution against it because there are things that are out of your control and there's nothing you can do. It's almost always a lose-lose situation with, a condo. I always say if you're going to buy a condo, it should be when you're at an age where you can't maintain property, you're kind of sundowning, you're just, older, over 55 community, and you just don't want to deal with the maintenance because you can't physically. And that's okay. But if you are starting your strategy, you're, young, vibrant, ready to go, I would steer clear of condos. All right. Just my 2 cents. It almost very rarely works. There are some people that will say, I have several condos and it works. It's for me. And those are the exceptions. They're not the rule. Every time I post about my HOA owners to see how they're doing, there's more that complain than not. Right. And that just goes to show you that there is an inherent issue with purchasing property like that, particularly if you want to be flexible. But wealth building is about being flexible. If you can't be flexible and something is holding you down, it's going to be very, very difficult to build. Okay. So I hope that was a little tidbit for you all who are thinking of condos. Think twice. Okay. And take heed. Look very closely at your situation and what you want to do in the future. Okay. Signing out.